look at my lovely hair. Back in a ponytail. We're going to be going live. Or we are live. We're going to be playing we're on Making a Murderer Part 2. I gotta look here, right? Here. Part 2, Episode 5, which they have titled, What plus Y equals Who? I am paused at 7 seconds. And at, it's 3:02 p.m. my time. At 3:15 is when I will hit play. So if you want to play it along with me, you know to hit play then. Good, Paul. Glad you could make it. Yeah, I know I changed up the time again because I was supposed to have a lunch meeting today and that got canceled. So it's like, all right, let's just go live earlier for people, you know, that it's an earlier time for them. So don't know who all will be able to make it, but we're here and trying to get through all of these episodes before the brief comes out on the 20th. Allegedly, it could come out anytime, but the 20th is the date. Ooh, I'm chilly. It's actually not bad here. So, and then, I don't know how many episodes we'll watch. Because, going on early and, you know, maybe we'll end up marathoning it and watching. Yeah, there's only 5 episodes. Yeah, 5 episodes left, so we might burn through all 5 today. Oh, yeah, Kate, I can't discuss that still, but, I'm all good now. So, no worries. It was just something that had happened right then trying to process it, but it's all good now. We're, all back on course, and I did post a thing if you want to try and win the signed Beauty book and or Red Lobster gift card. So you just have to donate to the Kalyazinski family, and there's instructions in that. I have it pinned. I don't know why it's doing that. I have a pin so you guys could find it. So it's $20 if you want to be in to try and win the book. I don't yawn all day and then I get on here and now I'm getting on. $20 if you want to be put in the raffle for the book, and $10 if you want to be in the raffle for the Red Lobster gift card, or $30 if you want to go on both. And so then next week, the 19th, I think is when I put the deadline. So the day before the brief, I will draw randomly the people to win those items. So, and then I am toying with doing an MaM gossip shirt, hoodie, that kind of stuff. So I haven't put too much thought into that right now, but that's something we're talking about doing that would again benefit the Kalyazinski family. Ooh, I'm now zipping up my sweat jacket. I am chilly here. So, and then part 2. So the new season, I know we always refer to it as a season, but the documentarians call them parts, part 1 and part 2. So part 2 is the new season. Episode 6, 7 seconds in. And then we will just discuss as we watch. And we are at 3:07 So I'm not doing the math, but 3:15 is when I'll hit play. Anything anybody would like to talk about in the few minutes that we have before we start watching? Sorry, looking at other stuff on Facebook right now. And then I talked to Paul today and told him what I'm doing with the book and the gift card, and told him to be on the lookout for money being donated to the GoFundMe, as well as there are some people who are sending money directly to him, because GoFundMe takes a percentage out. And so if people want to donate money directly to the Kaljuzinskis, that will qualify for the raffle too. And hello, Danielle. Sorry for the yawning. Oh, sorry, this is a political thing. And I was just on the phone with somebody about that. That's why usually I try and come on a little bit earlier. But I was dealing with political stuff here. Thank you. Oh, I like this article. Sorry. Hello, Lisa in England. Sorry, now I have to post this. Yeah, we're just sitting here in quiet right now as I'm sitting here posting this article, but in my activist group. Deborah says, "Hi, Jax. I meant to be getting children ready for school, not watching you. You're addictive." Sorry, Deborah. Julie, will there be a march on January 20 in Chicago? No, there will not. Here in Chicago, we did a march in October that was called March to the Polls. And, you know, it's very expensive to put that kind of thing together. So Women's March Chicago can't afford to do two marches in a year. They're still paying off that one. So, no, there is no march in January, but Women's March Chicago will be doing something. Julie, are you local? I think you might have told me before you're local. Local to me, I should say. But I work with the Women's March Chicago people all the time, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. All right, we have 4 minutes. Oh, chilly, and I keep yawning. But I'm also in a tank top and shorts because I wasn't going anywhere today. Now that my meeting got canceled. Oh, you're in Michigan. I don't know if Michigan's having a march. Hey, Shanda. You know, because there's all the individual chapters of the Women's March. So, like, did you go to the Women's March convention that was up in Michigan in Detroit? I was at that one. 3 minutes till live. No news on Bobby or Scott. No, we haven't heard anything. We just know that Kathleen is busy getting the finishing touches on her brief for next week. Thursday next week. Right? 9:14 p.m. in Scotland. See? Yeah, maybe I should have even gone earlier today. Because I thought about before doing it at 2 o'clock, which would have been an hour earlier. And then since I've been dealing with political stuff all morning, I then put it off an hour. But maybe I should do a Facebook Live at some time, even if it's not, watching Making a Murderer, where we just go earlier. And so we can chat with, and then you guys aren't all up so late. What else did he send me? Sorry, sending funny pictures. Hi, Jill. My boyfriend who owns a print shop is making some funny pictures he's sending me. Because I asked him, I always ask him to make me pictures and such for the pages. And then he makes things that are funny too. Hi, Donna in California. One minute. Have my remote. Tammy, tried rewatching MaM 1 last night. Kratz is so pathetic. But I did read the new book. Awesome. Anyway, just wanted to say hi. And hello to you, Tammy. And Stacy says, I don't mind the time or staying up late to watch this. Oh, thank you. All right. I am paused at 7 seconds in. Part 2, episode 5. What, why, who? Get my finger on the play button. Watching on my laptop. And then we shall discuss. Julie, are things better today for you? You weren't yourself yesterday, just concerned. Yeah, I'm all good now, but thank you for your concern. And hello, Janet in Dublin. And we're at 3:15. And play. Oh, and unmute.
I inherited this defense theory that Stephen Avery's blood.
She inherited the defense theory of.
1996 blood
I understand why String and Beauty thought the blood vial was a big deal.
The viability of that theory, and if I wanted to continue with it.
We added one more experiment.
At trial, the defense got totally sandbagged on it because the state tested for EDTA and refuted the arguments that the defense had made to the jury.
It's my opinion that the blood stains that were
yeah, Kathleen is convinced that the planted blood did not come from those tubes.
So we did an extensive investigation on EDTA and determined, talking to some of the leading experts in the country, that there was no point in retesting. I also explored.
Just when you look at that, that's clearly a cotton swab that made those
to detect
little things.
Whether it was 05 blood from Stephen Avery or whether it was from the 1996 blood vial.
This way a little bit? No.
But Dr. Reich explained to me that you're talking about blood that degrades
but I also
and
don't
is
want you
in
just
a
staring
car
at my face.
from a 2005 murder. So he was cautioning me that it would be unlikely that there would be enough blood or any test that could date this blood. So I began to explore other places the blood could have come from.
Hi, Debbie.
They say they found blood evidence in the car. Why do you think the DNA evidence is inaccurate?
Because somebody had to put it there. I know I had a cut on my finger. I know know the blood was in my house from that, and I didn't clean it
And
up.
hello, Bryce in
And it was
Nebraska.
cleaned up. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out how it all happened. It's puzzling.
We
He
get
says an old
Steven
cut
says
broke
from the
and bled
start,
on his sink.
I had this cut,
Only thing I can
and
think of is
somebody
when I
planted
cut
my
my
blood
hand.
from this cut.
When it broke open again, and in the bathroom, there was blood on the sink. You know, I woke up the next morning, it was all cleaned up. That's, so right now, I'm still trying to think, who cleaned it up? Who was in my house?
For years, I mean, all the way back to 2005, he's talked about the fact the blood was taken from his trailer on the night of the 3rd, that he was bleeding, and that he bled in the sink and on the floor.
Your blood was found in several different places in the car. How do you explain that?
They put it there from my bathroom sink. You know, I cut my finger, and I broke open, and I had blood in the bathroom. You know, it was Thursday night, and when we left, me and Chucky went to Menards. That's when I see taillight back by me.
How far away were you from the taillight?
Oh, we're by the end of the road, but we were turning. And that's why I told Chucky to turn around. Let's go look.
Oh yes, Hildy,
So
I've
we
seen
went-
the
We
jinx.
turned around.
That
And Chucky
and
pulled up by
that end thing in the bathroom. It was like, oh my god, I can't believe he's saying that. And that guy's so guilty.
When I took the flashlight and looked around, maybe they were in my house, but I didn't go in there. And I was just looking for a vehicle.
Do you know what time that was when you saw the taillight Thursday night?
Not between 6 and 7, somewhere in there. That's where I think where they got the blood. Because when I went with Chucky to the Menards, and I come back, I didn't go to the bathroom. I peed outside, you know.
He peed
Then I
outside.
went to bed. And Friday morning, when I got up and took a shower, it was gone. I didn't notice it no more.
What was gone Friday morning? The blood was gone?
Yeah, it was all cleaned up.
Glad you're here, Ann and Christy. Yeah, TMI Steven. But again, showing the honesty of Steven. He's just gonna, you know, the typical person isn't going to say, I peed outside. You know, even if you did. You don't say that. But that's Steven. So, and then also, Steven would say something to, while he's been in prison all this time. And he hasn't. The only person who's ever said he has was obviously just trying to better himself. And hello, Olivia. And hello to Stacy. I was going to say Jax. As I'm reading it, say, hey, Jax from London. Hey, Stacy in London.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
All right, as long as I'm sitting down.
I know what
That's
you
where
mean.
Dolores spends most of her
So
time,
bad.
is she sits at that
I
kitchen
hurt.
table.
My legs hurt me. I can't walk hardly.
Really? So you've gotten worse since I was
Yeah.
here last?
Yeah.
Have you talked to Stephen?
Today I did.
Yeah. So he and I went to this last week. The order's going in to turn the stuff over to me for the
Wow.
testing. Yeah.
Good.
We did it by agreement because once
Hey,
you start
Jackie
litigating
in South
testing,
Carolina.
it could take us 5 years. So we seem to
No, I
work
won't be
it.
around here in 5 years, I don't
No.
think.
No, I don't
Oh,
wanna
that's
be,
sad.
don't want to be working on this in 5 years. I just got a screwdriver.
Oh, you brought your own tools?
I'm a full service law firm. Yeah, so I'm gonna go up to the trailer. I'm gonna try to take the sink out if I can. And, you have the key?
I got a key here too, though. Chucky brought it here.
Yeah.
I keep it.
And I'm always curious about
Behind
this,
some paper
you know,
plates on the counter.
because the Avery family
Yeah.
doesn't own
Okay.
Stephen's trailer.
So I'm gonna go up
Or the
there and then
garage, or the
I'll come back
property it's
by
on.
before I
So,
leave. I'll just tell
do
you
they
what I
have to get
found.
Raleigh Johnson's
okay,
permission? Or does, you know, Raleigh just let the Avery family do whatever they're going to do with the trailer there?
He said that there's no pry marks on the door. Let me go talk to him. Hey, Kurt,
Yes.
you know, this thing looks like it's got a pry mark on it.
Yeah, that clearly looks like a
Yeah.
pry mark to me there.
See on here?
Yeah.
It's crazy though that they would come to the front. Probably somebody who's done it a bunch of times. Because I think cops, they would have that because they find cars all the time
Yeah.
and they get into them.
Like a Slim Jim.
Yeah. What's the efficient light for it?
I just love her. Look at her doing it for herself.
Here it is. And we just have to disconnect it. We gotta have that surface.
Yeah.
Okay. At least you popped it out.
Let's see, the water's gonna be connected still. I just need a wrench to actually take the pipe out. Yeah.
Is it moving?
Yeah,
Good.
should be pretty soon.
All right. Voila.
No, the family really
Do you remember
disrespects
Springer
Kathleen.
Yeah.
I know it was mine being breaking open.
It bled in that sink.
Well, not
Oh, yeah,
Dolores or
somebody
Alan.
cleaned it.
Do you remember him saying that? Someone had cleaned it?
He said something about it.
Yeah, because he kept trying to tell.
Yeah, Julie.
toiletries,
Julie
they
says
took
I
the
keep
blood
thinking
out of
about
the
getting
sink,
those
but nobody
martial
was
arts
listening
books
to
as a
him.
child and hiding them
You
in
know,
her
so I
doll
think
books.
that's the way it happened.
Kathleen's a
So all
badass.
that got done on the 3rd.
Well,
Would there be any reason that Stephen would have a pry bar? Because it looks like a pry bar was used to open up his trailer. He might call it a nail puller.
Okay,
I want to see. Don't close it. I'm going to put it back in there.
hang on a second once.
Uh-uh.
That is a nail remover.
That's what you guys call it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I just found out something. This
What?
is Carla, my daughter.
Yeah.
Brenda's getting released.
Is he today?
I don't know, you want,
Yeah.
here, talk to her.
See, that's Carla
Yeah,
just
'cause I
trying to
need to
get in.
judge.
Oh my God, Kathleen's there. I want to talk to her.
It just came on mine that church.
Duffy. Are they gonna do it today?
And see, and this is when Barb had nothing to do with Carla. So Carla here pushing her
Okay.
way into anything Brendan. And Brendan had also told her at that time that he wanted nothing to do with her.
Where he is incarcerated right now, are they gonna move him and then release him, or can you tell?
I didn't fully read the brief yet.
Okay. I'll pull it up online. Thank you. That's great news.
And it wasn't true.
What? It sounded like she was gonna cry at me on the phone.
who?
Cry?
Maybe it was going to be a happy cry.
So I just saw the court order. They're gonna let Brendan out. He should get out today. They're just getting the probation officer approved.
I bet Barbara's crying if she hears it already.
Does she know?
I don't
Do
know.
you have a phone number? Seems like she.
You have reached.
They think her phone stays in the car. She can't take it in there.
Oh,
Yeah,
Well, when was
That's
she
it.
supposed to
they're
get off
pretty
of work?
strict there.
When was she supposed to get off of work? 3. Because if he can't get out today, someone has to pick him up, right?
Yeah, they do.
So
So
isn't
they've
that
got
weird?
us to
So
start
there's
driving,
Brittany
'cause it's gonna take
standing
them
right
long
there
to
with
get them.
Earl, who's her father.
And she should be the
Yet
one.
she
Like,
changed her last name to her
Well, we gotta
mother's
figure out where she
maiden name.
works. Don't you
By
think she
that
would
one
ought to go
on
color?
Columbus Street.
Just odd.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to ride over there and tell her?
Should we go this way or go straight?
Oh my God, that's where when I went, we were constantly in the circle because that was the Exxon station and the cemetery that's right across the street from it. That when we went up there and took video, we constantly kept coming back to that same spot.
You never know. Maybe they couldn't talk to her. I don't know.
Her boss will not let her leave. I mean,
When this was going on, Barb's boss told her that if
I'm a little
Stephen
hesitant. I don't
was,
want to crowd Northwestern because I'm not the attorney.
oh boy,
her boss
Um,
is talking to.
her boss said
Brendan's
that
lawyer
if
right now.
Brendan was
It sounds like
released and she
Matt
took
Ryder
off
is
of work for
talking
that,
to
she was
Barb's
fired.
Boss.
I don't know what time it is now. 2 o'clock.
It's 2 o'clock. She said she'd lose her job if she walked out.
I just got home from work and Brendan was supposed to be getting released, but that's all I know. I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't know nothing. So fill us in, Ma.
I do believe, Julie, that she would have been fired.
It's the greatest feeling ever.
Did they say what day?
No,
Is it going to be this week?
don't know. She's calling me back later.
I do. I feel bad for Barb. Is that wrong for me to feel bad for Barb?
27 News has been here at Columbia Correctional all day waiting on Dassey's release, but we have learned that the U.S. Probation Office in Milwaukee, which will supervise Dassey's release, has to visit the home where he plans to be living first before he can be released. Meanwhile, Wisconsin Attorney General Brad Schimmel said he plans to file an emergency motion to stop Dassey's release.
Did Scott pick up his cigarette butt? That's actually true. And the reason Scott started doing that is because Carla said she was going to pick up his cigarette butt to get the DNA to prove that Scott did it.
25-2, he'll call.
Yeah, it's getting close.
There
he is.
Sit.
Collect call from an inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution. To accept charges, press 1. To reduce charge, thank you for using entry. You may start the conversation now.
Hello, honey.
Hello?
You hear the good news?
Did you?
Yes?
Yeah, but I didn't get to see it.
You didn't get to see it? Why is that?
They put me out for the shower at the same time as that news was on.
Oh, really?
Hey, buddy, can you do us a favor and talk louder?
Shut up, Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, but when are they gonna release me though?
We don't know yet.
I thought it was gonna be tonight. Like I'm even wearing my own personal underwear right now.
Really?
Yeah, very bad.
Are you planning on getting out?
Yeah. So you put my sweatpants on.
You were really ready to go, weren't you?
So I might be out by Friday probably.
So we're hoping.
Yeah, Carla was going to start
Are you
collecting them back
excited?
when she and Barb and didn't speak.
So am I. I'll be more excited when you're here. Yeah.
And also Barb wanted to make
Did I
sure
know
that
you
Carla
all?
was nowhere around when Brendan was released. Because she knew Carla just would want the camera.
Yep.
It's probably gonna be just me and your mother.
Well, I think they were bringing my stuff to you guys first before they released it. Because when Steven was going out, he had Mom's hand in one hand and the other one in
Jenny's.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know if he even brung anything with him. I think he left everything there. I don't know. I don't remember.
I thought he brought his typewriter with him, didn't he?
Oh God, I don't know. That's been too long ago.
Typewriter.
So is there a different way in there besides
Yeah,
the
I don't
front
like
door?
Scott talking with Brendan either.
But that Sally port's just right in the front, so I don't think there is.
We're just trying to figure out a way to get you out there safely, that's all.
Yeah.
Without any news media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Joyce, I was.
A lot of people are really frustrated. The media is making him out as kind of a rock star.
Snack time.
And a victim, when the real victim is Teresa Halbach.
I mean, come on now, he's not a rock star, he's a killer. They did what they did, and I think he should never get out. And I had to pull over and call you because it just upset me.
If there's some legal issue, okay, fine, but these guys did it. And somehow along the way we've lost that.
I have a question. Did you think it was Ryan Hilgus at one point? I thought you did. I still think he's suspect. Yes, I absolutely thought it was Ryan Hilgus at one point. But now, with every brief that Kathleen puts out, just the more the evidence points to Bobby to me. And I believe Ryan Hilgus was part of getting the car to the salvage yard from the dam.
The state filed an emergency order to stop him from getting out. Wisconsin Attorney General Brad Schimmel notes Dassey's lawyers claim his confession was coerced. Schimmel says even if it was, that doesn't mean Dassey didn't actually sexually assault, kill, and mutilate Teresa Halbach.
Even if it was a coerced confession, he could have still done those things. Where's the proof?
Schimmel is asking the court to make a decision on this by tomorrow. And of course, Dassey's family has said they hope to have him home by Thanksgiving.
Right.
In Portage, Nick Bohr, WISN 12 News.
Isn't that just a crazy thing to say?
This morning, Judge Duffin reviewed the state's motion and concluded that they just rehashed what they had said before, and there was no reason for him to change his mind.
No, Tori. Barb never said what she
So,
thought happened.
Judge Duffin, in his decision,
And I didn't ask.
based
I
upon
felt uncomfortable
the
to
home visit,
ask.
the interviews, the review of Brendan's records, based upon all of that, ordered that Brendan be released no later than Friday at 8 o'clock.
I know, Julie, a lot of people think that maybe he knew something about Bobby.
It's over the moon. Brendan and his mother.
I don't think he could lie.
Apart. And the idea that he could be home by Thanksgiving is, I mean, talk about tasting gratitude.
Oh, you know what? I wasn't friends with him at this point. It was the first time that he was almost going to get out. Because now I remember getting pissed.
Some wonder why current
Because
Attorney General Brad Schimmel is fighting
when
so hard to
Brendan
keep
thought
Dassey
he was
locked
getting
up.
out,
I have to approach this from a perspective.
he gave away all his stuff, his TV, all this. And then, upon the ruling that he has to stay there,
To hug her on Thanksgiving.
Barb didn't go visit.
This is
until we
Brendan,
sort
she
out
went
with
hunting
certainty
instead. You know, November
whether
is their
the jury's
hunting month,
verdict
and
against
she
Brendan
takes off
Dassey will
work all of
stand or not.
November just to go kill stuff.
We need to keep him where he is. Basically, the state is doing whatever they
So I
can
just
to
remember
keep
being
this from
pissed
happening.
about what mother does that.
Right now, the ball's in the Seventh Circuit.
Wouldn't you have gone to the prison to try and go console him that he's not getting out when everybody was telling him he was?
Good afternoon. This is Bob Dvorak calling from Milwaukee. I'm wondering who the duty judge is this week. And I'm calling about the Dassey case. Yeah, okay. So we don't know who it's going to. Okay, thanks. Bye.
This is breaking news now.
And that's what
TMJ4.
Nyrider at prison said at the thing recently is you don't know who you're going to get at the Seventh Circuit until the day.
Now, the three-judge panel out of Chicago didn't offer an opinion on why it issued the stay. It simply granted it. This is the same court that will ultimately decide whether or not to overturn the August ruling by Judge William Duffin that overturned Dassey's conviction. In response to today's order, Dassey's legal team released a statement that said, "We are disappointed more than words can say. The fight goes on." Meanwhile, Stephen
Brendan has to stay in prison until his appeal is resolved. It was a blow, but, you know, Brendan's a rock here. He's our rock.
Right, Julie?
And his faith in us and his optimism is what keeps us going forward. This is one skirmish in a series of battles that is going to end in the Seventh Circuit, and we're ready to fight for Brendan. And we're confident that we're going to prevail.
Dassey and his attorneys were expecting his release from the Columbia Correctional Institution here in Portage by Friday at 8 p.m. But right now, it's clear that's not going to happen. Stephen Avery is still serving a life sentence. He's currently being held in Papong Correctional. He, of course, was the focus of that documentary, Making a Murderer. Avery's current attorney, Kathleen Zellner, claims new testing of some key pieces of evidence will clear him of that murder.
You want this hamburger?
Get me off that goddamn camera.
I know.
I had a bad day.
Me too. I don't know what's Barbara doing with her job. I heard she took a whole month off. How's she gonna live? She got over $1,000 house payment.
Listen to what Dolores says. How is Barb taking a whole month off of work?
Wisconsin
Paying
Attorney
for her
General Brad
house.
Schimmel filed that emergency motion yesterday. This morning, 7th District Court of Appeals approved the motion for the stay.
And the timeline is the big question here. Federal court records show December deadlines for both sides to file paperwork in the appeal regarding Dassey's.
That all sticks in my head. How many years of it?
Specific date for when a final opinion will be issued by that three-judge panel, but it could take several months.
2045 to be exact. Christy.
It's another day just lay there again. Just they to keep on playing, and there's still more stuff on TV. You're going through the same thing I did. And you got your hopes up, and then, of course, it shuts you down again.
Hello, Peggy.
Every time you turn around, you think something positive, and then you just get kicked in the face again.
Yo, Colby.
So the surface of the sink is hard and flat. And then, you know, roughly, what was it the state expert said, the amount of blood in the car?
I believe he estimated 2 to 3 milliliters.
Yeah.
Something.
My recollection is 1 to 2 milliliters.
So he got
from
6
his
spots
trial
in the
testimony.
car, but the spots are all small. And
Yeah.
that's his estimate on it.
Yes,
Okay.
I think 1 to 2, he said.
Right. So let's talk about the blood in the car. We got a description by the Wisconsin Crime Lab that on this carpet they found
I am eating
flakes, and I'm talking about the carpet
Rice Krispie treats.
right in front of the driver's seat. So there were blood flakes on this carpet, and the analysts picked those flakes up with tweezers.
Unless you have a considerable amount of blood on a carpet, you're not going to necessarily see flakes or drying effect, because with 1 or 2 drops or 3 drops, it's going to absorb right into the carpet, and to see flaking like that visually would be probably not very likely.
My
What
God,
if
I'm
we
dealing
open
with
one
this
of our
and text message and
tubes
this message.
and drip onto this carpet, okay? Let's just watch what happens when we drip.
So we're seeing very small drops because they're absorbed into the carpet. Now, do you want me to make a larger amount?
Yeah, we could do another line of a larger, and then we could drip in the sink. So let's try in the sink, if we just drip in there, and then we'll let it sit as we're talking, and we can compare the two surfaces.
Kind of like that?
Mm-hmm, yeah,
And then we can,
yeah, okay,
that's going to take some time to dry.
yeah.
That's for sure.
Wrecking Crew, I think, is a good book. Whoops. I was trying to. Julie says, wasn't Buting arguing there is no
What you're
testing
seeing
available
basically is
up
the
just
blood drying on the
hold up.
fibers.
For that
Right.
preservative
If
in
someone
the
were
tube,
to
they had difficulty
be
finding a
processing
lab that tested
this
for it.
car
Yeah.
For blood.
And then it got rushed by the same people that did something in the OJ thing.
Right.
You wouldn't be taking a flake off one of these stains.
What the state has represented to me is there were not blood stains, there were just flakes. She's not describing stains. She is not picking up flakes from stains, she's just picking up flakes,
Well, then-
which tells you there's no stain there.
Right, which means that the flakes
Flakes are put
would have
there.
to come from a different source, whether it be from somewhere above. Although, looking at the transfer stain on the dashboard.
Danielle, there's a whole lot of
evidence of that
shadiness
flaking.
on that.
And it's not, it would never land
How they claim
where
bankruptcy.
this carpet is. This carpet
They're
is
constantly in
between
medical
the
debt.
console on the car. The flakes are back
And then
under
they were able to
here.
buy that house.
You can't see it in this picture. It's like between the console and the edge of the seat is
Right.
where she's finding them.
I mean, I've never claimed
So-
That doesn't make
bankruptcy.
any sense. I mean, there's got
And so I know there's
gotta be
something
a
to
source
that,
of
that
those
after you
flakes.
claim bankruptcy, right, you
because she is
can't
not saying there
default
was a
on
stain,
anything
and that's highly
for X amount
suspicious.
after
Right, I
that.
find
So
it unusual,
some people do
absolutely.
like to
Yeah,
give
I mean,
you
I just think that's
credit because they
preposterous.
know you
So-
can't default on it.
Okay, so then let's talk
But
about
still, there's
this blood,
so much
which
there.
It looks like it's flowing down. What is that?
Appears to me, to be a angular passive drip stain.
That just ran down like
Well,
gravity?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, I've got some really good high-speed videos that show how this is formed.
6 blood
The
areas and
blood
only 3
drop
were
actually-
tested.
It hits the surface here, and then it just kind of runs down like this and finally stops. But that's pretty much what we're seeing there.
Let me ask you this. If you got into the trailer and the blood was in the sink, could you have picked a drop up if you had this? Because I'm trying to think the removal to the drop, because swabbing, you're not going to create a drop.
Sorry to displace you again here.
Yeah, here, let's see.
Well, here.
Kathleen really
So
does her
let's see.
due diligence.
Yeah.
Oh, Christy says they bought the house before the bankruptcy. A lot of people are not aware what bankruptcy entails unless they have actually filed it. Right, so you can keep your house in a bankruptcy.
Pull it up.
Well, here, okay, I pulled some blood up from there,
Yeah.
and let's see what we do here.
Yeah.
You're gonna get pretty much the same thing. I haven't got the same amount there.
Yeah, yeah.
It looks just like the one there.
It
In
does.
fact, I think the bottom of that's not even cut off. But anyway, that looks pretty much like what you're seeing there, right?
It does.
You agree?
Yep, I agree. So now I know that's how it's pulling up with the dropper or geyser. As Stephen Avery described, dripping on the edge of the sink and then
The blood
Yeah,
should,
but there
actually,
is a lot
after
of
you see cracks
good
in the
reasons
surface,
to
etc.
claim
And
bankruptcy.
then when you
Just
see when that will occur.
Marvin Scott's situation looks really kind of sketch.
All right.
Okay.
You ready for the scraping episode?
Yeah. Those are good size.
Oh my god, that scratching noise is bothering my ears like nails on a chalkboard.
Let's try this one. Be a little moist, but.
Oh my god, $1 million in debt?
That non-absorbent surface, really
We need a GoFundMe for Christy.
great.
You got quite a few in there
Yeah,
now.
you got a bunch of them. Look at that.
Well, that's,
Yeah, I think that'll work. So
And if
now
you put it in the card, you should put it on some white paper or something so it can be seen.
I will. Yeah,
You
we'll
know.
take. I'll take.
All right.
All right, now what we should do is what we did. We could swab up.
Do you want this swab to go?
Yeah, these swabs we're going to do by the ignition. The officers that are suspected in that activity were evidence techs who carried swabs and distilled
They filed
water.
for $77,000 and paid $19,000 back. Wow.
Now let's see what I got here. Here we go.
Oh, wow.
How's that?
Great. Let's see. And then I want to see up here what. There it is. Could that be true? That it's just that simple? Someone got in the trailer, wiped up the blood, and they dripped it into the car and smeared
Really,
above the
Danielle?
ignition.
That's interesting. No bank around here will loan you even for a car with outstanding debt. And of
I
course,
think
here's
the
my dogs all
defense
begging to go
attorneys
outside.
probably underestimated what they were up against. And
Let's go.
I think that the state just has enormous resources. They can bring in all these experts. They can, they have 3 attorneys at the table. They've got all the cops working for them. I mean, you are outgunned when you come into it. But I still believe if you just had a blood spatter expert, I had one case is just on blood spatter. So if you could have definitively taken down one piece of evidence and shown it was planted. It isn't like this would have cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You could have gotten the experts, I think, for $20,000. A lot of experts will help you just if you're in that situation. I mean, this was child's play for Stuart James. I mean, he could tell immediately the blood spatter testimony was just completely wrong. it's hard to say that someone's ineffective, but when the state's got 14 experts and you've got 2, there's something dramatically wrong.
Well, you know, people ask us about the verdict and, you know, how we explain it.
Dex,
And
I feel like
think
I'm
a
in
lot
your
of it
living
was
room with
pretrial
the dog's
publicity
claw
that
on the
this
floor.
particular jury just couldn't
The chills
put aside
fuck out at
that
the spirit so
and
funny. I
combined
love
with
it.
the fact
Thanks,
that
Kate.
the ruling shortly before trial that said we weren't going to be able to
Danielle,
point
we have
the finger at
rebuilt
any
credit
other
and no
suspect
debt
present
and can't
evidence
find
of
a
that.
lender to give us
Unlike a lot of
$200K
cases,
because of a past
we
oh
had
God.
suspects, the other suspects, who could very well have done this and tried to present that. And
I had trouble
the court
once
ruled
on my
against us by
mortgage that
stretching
I
the
missed.
prior law in
I
a
believe
way
it was
that made it
around
impossible
Christmas
for us to
time.
do that.
This was like 10 years
so,
ago or something.
You know, I think that really handicapped us from the beginning.
I missed 2 payments.
Based on my research, Wisconsin courts are more
And then
receptive
the next payment
to
I
ineffective
made,
assistance
I
claims than
made
maybe they
a
are
payment and a half
If you can show
to
that
try and,
something
you know,
the attorney
start
did
to
or
try
did
and get
not
caught
do
up.
undermines
And they
confidence in the
rejected it. They
outcome,
wouldn't cash my checks
then
at all.
that's
They said
something
they
on which
wanted
a
the
court
full amount.
might grant relief.
Period.
So, for example, if an attorney fails to present expert testimony that could have supported the defense, or, you know, there are other cases that talk about evidence that could have shown that the prosecution's version of events was false. You know, if that's something a defense attorney didn't adequately investigate or present to the jury.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely apply here.
Yeah.
And then the defense argued the Denny standard was unconstitutional, but it's been part of Wisconsin law since 1984.
Exactly. They did a couple things that I think would go into what you were just discussing about ineffective assistance of counsel.
So this guy, Doug,
One argument they had was that Denny
he is
doesn't apply
who
to us, and there's no precedent
leads for
And then
Kent
secondly,
Pellegrini.
They said we don't have to
Another
prove motive,
case that Kathleen has, and I run
which
his
there's no case law
Facebook
to
page,
support that type of argument.
which is Justice,
So
the
what-
letter for
what's
Kent.
developing here
There's,
is
and I know a lot of
pattern.
people don't know what's
I'll give
going
you some
on in
examples.
Kent's case.
It's
There's
a
not a whole
failure
lot out there on
the
his case.
forensic evidence
Kent
to
is
follow
in
up
prison
on what
because
they
his
got. It's a
wife
failure to
accused
follow
him
up
of
on
raping her.
leads
So
in
it's
the
not a
police
murder
reports
case.
with certain
But
individuals. The dog tracks,
But there's a
which,
lot
you know,
of,
the scent dogs are all over the quarry.
um,
The cumulative effect of that
framing
would, of course,
and
undermine, I think,
just
confidence in the verdict. To
a
just
lot
have
of bullshit
so
in
many
that one,
things
too.
that you didn't do as the defense attorney.
Absolutely. And there are cases that talk about cumulative error
Oh, good.
in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
and that's something that the court will consider.
Yeah, I mean, they're successful in getting the planted evidence theory in front of the jury, but it just has no impact because it doesn't have any substance to it. I mean, the blood spatter expert says he will testify that the blood by the ignition was put on with an applicator. You know.
I can't believe they didn't have a blood spatter expert.
Yeah, it's like when you look at
Your
this
whole
thing.
theory is blood is planted.
yes, they're right. Strang and Buting dropped the ball on things. There's no denying that. But they also did not have the money and the resources that Zellner has.
When I've done murder trials, what I want the jury to hear is my story of what happened. And my story is going to involve a different scenario of who killed the victim. And I'm going to push that. That's at the top of my list to do that. Because if I can convince the jury that someone else could have committed the crime, I'm going to win. When I spent time with Josh Radon, he was very forthcoming with me and really went beyond what he needed to do to answer my questions.
Danielle
I
should
believe that
ask
he
Barb
was
who her lender
completely
is.
credible. So, based on his alibi, which we thoroughly checked out, based on my interview with him and the additional evidence he gave me, I ruled him out as a Denny suspect. So I crossed him off the list. The other thing I learned that was extremely important was that the suspected human pelvic bones weren't on his private property. They were on the Manitowoc gravel property. So we could then broaden the investigation.
Happy holidays to you, Dondi.
It's what plus why equals who. What happened? Why did it happen? If we understand
Dogs
why
want
it
to come back
happened,
in already.
we'll know who did it. It's I'm the risk of oversimplifying that, but basically that's the pattern you want to go down. So doing a real thorough victimology. You want to know everyone she's been in touch with, and who they are, and what's the nature of the relationship, and and all of that. Especially close in time to the homicide.
Do you see
there.
any risk factor elevation with the type of job that she had?
Yes, she was going out, she was doing these auto trader things, shooting photos of cars in different places and different people. Again, she's going to go out and
Zellner
meet
is
people she doesn't
suing
know.
Chase Bank here
But
in Chicago.
70 to 80% of people who are murdered by someone they know. So it's a combination of looking at that particular victim and then looking at the people around her. If someone's in their 20s, sexual relationships, boyfriends, whatever, how many.
I don't remember much
all
on
those
those
sorts of
pelvic bones
things,
at all,
because
Julie.
It's when those are the things that can be emotional and trigger people to do bad things. So those are the areas that you want to concentrate in and look into those private parts of her life.
Weird.
Intimate relations.
So over here I can
so
see
forth,
Bryce
and,
said Merry
she's
Christmas.
sleeping with somebody's husband. I mean,
But it's
that's
not over here.
risk factor. All those things you have to really understand to move in the right direction, to make sure you're not get off and
And do families, like with victims of
families are emotional. I understand that. That's a delicate part, dealing with these are the vicarious victims, say in a homicide, or the family members and friends, and you have to deal with that artfully and compassionately with them. But you've got a job to do, and you've got to get in there and find out what was going on. Otherwise, you're doing a disservice to everybody, including the victim. So yes, everybody close to her, in contact with her, even remotely at the beginning, has to be looked at as a potential suspect until you can rule them out.
One of the things that we did was we created a chart of
Jackie,
who
because
did they get an
in
alibi
Chicago
from. So if we start
there
with,
was a
the
black
married
man
who's getting
who
a
had
divorce, and that she
served
had,
X amount of
the
years
sexual
for a
relationship
crime he
with,
didn't commit,
and then a friend of
and then
hers
he was
described that she
released,
wanted
and
to
then
break
he
that
was
off, but he kept
awarded.
calling her.
He
He
numbers. I
described it
can't
as
remember
they
how
were
much
still
money he
great
got.
friends. And then,
And
of
so
course,
he went to Chase
provides
Bank
information that she's
to
had
deposit
sexual
his
relations with her
money,
roommate. Her
and they
roommate
wouldn't
is
take his
best
check.
friends with her ex-boyfriend.
So then he
First
had to
of
go
all,
back
ex-boyfriends
to
have to
Zellner
always be in the
because
suspect pool.
The ex-boyfriend
Zellner
doesn't-
was also
is never
listed on the
asked. He
check,
says at trial he's very
so
forthcoming.
had
No, I was
her
never
endorse
asked
it
to
as
provide an
well, and
alibi.
he went back, and they
The
still
roommate
wouldn't
was
take
never
his
asked
money
to provide an
and
alibi.
give him an account
And
and
she
all
goes
that.
missing on
So
the
she's now
31st,
suing the
but
bank
nobody
for
reports
racism.
that until the 3rd of November. So it isn't like when she doesn't come home the 31st, the 1st, the 2nd, that anybody's reporting it. It's her business colleague that finally calls the mother and says, I'm worried. So would that make you comfortable with eliminating them? Or
No, not at all. You can't eliminate anybody based on that. It's a lack of investigation. Each of those individuals have to be looked at as potential suspects.
The first thing we did was start with who was Teresa Halbach and who was she in relationships with. And we checked out from her phone records and everything we could gather, her emails, everyone that she had.
There were a lot of people
and we
in
did
Teresa
criminal background
Hallbach's
checks on them.
personal
And
life.
then we looked at potential alibis for that day, possible motives, the nature of the relationship, all of that we sorted through to refine it down to one person, two people that might meet the Denny standard. And at the top of my list was Ryan Hilligus.
Right.
There was tension between them during the summer. She didn't even want to photograph a wedding that she knew he was going to be the best man in. They broke up in 2001.
Yeah.
But Ryan was still
I agree,
coming over a
Kristen,
lot,
that cadaver
visiting,
dogs could
and
possibly still find
Teresa even
something.
wrote in
And
an
then
email in October
Paul
that she realized
Kaluzinski
that Ryan was
suggested
still
people should
interested
go
in
out
her,
there with
was still checking
metal
her
detector
out.
and see if they can find her real key. Do you know if KZ will
It's
be able
clear
to
to
introduce
me
the battery
that
and garage
she's over
results in her
Ryan.
1220 filing?
But Ryan
I am
still
getting
seems
conflicting
interested
stories
in
on whether
her.
she is allowed to introduce them in her brief.
And then
I don't
after
know
she
legal
murdered,
stuff, Kimberly.
moved into her
I thought
place,
she could introduce
and he's
anything that was
there where
new.
there's
It's just a
potentially
matter
evidence.
if they will accept it. Right?
I found that just unbelievable. And then he's providing the most intimate details about her to the investigators.
When you say you talked to the police, who did you speak with?
Let's see. I know, Thursday night when we were at the house, I went over after Scott called me. I went to the house and we kind of started calling around, calling friends then, but I believe it was Jerry Poggle and Detective Wiegert who were at the house Thursday night.
Why would you call him Jerry
collecting
Poggle?
Belongings,
And then
asking
Detective
questions.
Wiegert.
The family was there also.
And so did you
Calling
tell
him
Sheriff
Jerry
Poggle
Poggle
that you would
sounds
sort
like
of
you have a
become
personal
the
relationship.
coordinator of all of this?
I don't believe so. I think it was just kind of assumed I was kind of the contact for the whole search. If anybody wanted to help, they were instructed to call me. Basically, it, I guess, started with me.
Did you at some point ever go to the property? The Avery property?
Yes.
When was that?
I should pull those up. We've got them posted. We've posted them before. The logs of who was signing in and out to the crime scene, and why was he
I'm not
there
real sure on the
all the
dates.
time?
It's
And there's
possibly
times
that
where he
Monday
signed in or not
Tuesday.
signed out, or signed out and
would've
not
been,
signed in. Why is he at the crime scene?
Is that the 6th or 7th that Monday?
Well, let me ask you this: when you went to the property, was it still, to your knowledge, in the custody of the law enforcement?
Yes.
Did you pass through any checkpoints?
Yes.
And did the officers who let you in know that you had a relationship as a former boyfriend with the missing woman at that point?
I don't know if anybody knew I was an ex-boyfriend, or I guess I never saw the relevance in it.
I didn't see the
Sheriff
relevance
Poggle
of
know
that.
What's that?
Did Sheriff Poggle know of your relationship with her?
At that time, I don't believe so. I think everybody just assumed I was a good friend.
He's got access to Teresa's personal possessions, to her residence, and then he's on the Avery property crossing the checkpoints on November 7th. The key, the sub-key, is discovered on the 8th in Mr. Avery's bedroom. We think that there was a sub-key at her house, and somebody who had access to her house gave that key to the police.
Yep.
We've made repeated efforts to talk to him, and we've told him the reason we want to talk to him is to rule him out. If he can give me plausible explanations for things.
Because again, she's not law enforcement. She is.
One of the most
we're on episode 5.
Is his story about the parking light on Teresa's vehicle.
She's going where the evidence goes.
So
go to her and have her let her rule you out.
Teresa had broken out the parking light before October 31st. Made an insurance claim.
If you're innocent, why not?
Payout,
She's not going to create evidence to make you the guilty party if you're not. She wants who's guilty.
So that's interesting, because that's elaborate. And over the years, what you notice is people who lie usually have real elaborate lies. So the first thing that I checked out was that parking light broken when she visited the appointments that day. Her client, Mr. Schmitz, said that the car looked new, car's 6 years old. Our interpretation of that,
And that was something
he
I
didn't see any damage.
this
The car wasn't banged up or anything.
season I hadn't thought of before about the broken light is pushing
And
the
they
car
said
out of the way that
she never made a claim
blocks the
about
access
parking light.
to the salvage yard.
She made a claim about her windshield wiper.
That
This
makes
little
sense to me.
tiny expense, but she didn't make a claim about this really significant damage to the front of her vehicle. But the most important thing is the missing poster. Because when you put out a description of a car, and it was a detailed description, if it has any body damage, you put that on there. Because
That's a good point too. You would put on there
above
that
everything else. If people were seeing a Rev driving around with that whole
that it would have
front
the broken
parking
thing.
light knocked
Oh,
out.
sorry, Natasha.
So the parking light was not damaged before she was murdered. It is part of the events of the murder. And Mr. Hillegas connected himself to the parking light. And that is a huge piece of evidence linking him to the crime. Sorry to offend everyone, but I'm very offended by having a client who's innocent and is now spending, has now spent 13 years locked up for something he didn't do. So all of our feelings are hurt. But I'm going at it wherever the Denny Road and the evidence takes me, that's where I'm going. And if people want to get off the train, give us a call. We're totally reasonable. But I have no explanations for all of these things on Ryan Hillegas.
Dun dun dun.
So your attorney's got the brief all done, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for the regular appeal, right?
And that's for the 7th Circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that you talked about.
Yeah.
Did you know your 3 pages it was?
No.
No.
No. I haven't talked to Laura, so.
Oh boy, is this Barb actually talking without Scott?
Oh, but she's good, so.
Yeah.
Nope, that was him clearing his throat. So he was sitting there.
The process in the 7th Circuit involves each side having an opportunity to file briefs in front of the court that spell out your argument in written form. And then the court will review those briefs and review the record
Oh, sorry, Neely.
of the proceedings that happen below in federal court and in state court. And then comes oral argument, at which point lawyers from both sides will go into a courtroom at the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago and have an opportunity to make their points out loud
Laura
to the
Nyrider's
panel of
eyes
judges
are
who
so
will ask
pretty.
questions of either side.
They seem to be such a pretty blue.
Brad Schimmel. Brad, thanks for being
Yeah,
on the show.
Schimmel.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. So you've got several areas, and just give our viewers some idea of like how much is prosecuting specific types of cases versus government affairs and so forth.
Well, we have about 100 lawyers who work in our Division of Legal Services. About 24 of them do criminal prosecutions for the DA's offices when they have a highly complex case or a case that's going to take tremendous resources. And they also do the criminal appeals for the DA's offices. And we have about 100 special agents with the Division of Criminal Investigation who handle complex cases.
So investigators, not just lawyers, as employees.
Right.
Okay.
We also have the 3 crime labs. So I have about 200 people that work in our crime labs in Madison, Wausau, and Milwaukee.
Yeah, they're such stellar
We
people
also
that work
have
in
our
your
Solicitor
crime lab.
General's division that's working on defending our state's sovereignty relative to the federal government.
Pritzker.
The case is set for oral argument on Valentine's Day, 2017. And that means that both sides will get to present their case in 20 minutes to a panel of judges of the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. This is a federal court that is one step below the United States Supreme Court. It's a very important day, and that's why we are putting so much energy into preparing Laura for this case.
Yeah, Lily, we're on episode 5.
This is just the first in a series of mock arguments.
Episode 5 should be close to ending.
As best as possible, replicate the experience that Laura's going to have when she steps up in front of the Seventh Circuit. One of our students is actually going to argue the case for the state. There will be a panel of judges that I have selected, leading law school faculty, some who have experience in this area, some who are fresh to this case. Because we won the federal district court, the state gets to go first. He'll get questioned by the judges because we want to make this as real as possible, so Laura can sort of pick up on the questions that the judge asks the state. Laura will then get 20 minutes, essentially defending the district court's decision in Brendan's case. This is a hugely important day for Brendan Dassey. When we won in federal court in front of Judge Duffin, that was about a 1 in 100 shot. Each step of the way you go into the court system, the higher and higher levels of appeal, the harder it is to win. And if we lose in the Seventh Circuit, it just makes our climb that much more difficult.
Brendan was the first case that I got assigned to as a law student, and it changed my life. When I got assigned to Brendan's case and watched those videos, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I had to help people like this.
Yeah,
I now teach
this
the same
dog,
class
all my
that I
dogs are
took
rescues,
10 years ago.
so we don't know all that
it's
she
kinda come full
is.
circle for me.
Chihuahua and Min Pin.
You know, these aren't just names on a page. These aren't just legal arguments. These are real people with families and friends. They deserve justice, and they deserve truth.
Brendan will not be in attendance at this argument. It's very unusual for defendants to be present.
And I think that's
Brendan is,
bullshit.
you know,
This is your
unsettled
life they're talking
by this.
about. You should be able to
I
be
think
there.
he is cautiously optimistic that this will be one step closer to freedom. But he also realizes that there have been disappointments all along the way.
Oh, again with him touching Brendan. Maureen, I don't know how Mom and Pa are doing. As far as I know, I'm as good as can be expected. Getting older.
What has this kid been through from ages 16 to 26 now? Then, you know, it's not over. It's not over until either the government says that we're not going to prosecute you, or, you know, a jury comes back with a not guilty verdict. You know, and actually, there is no statute of limitations, come to think of it, for murder, so it's probably the not guilty verdict that is the only thing that's final here. It's something Brendan's gonna live with for the rest of his life, like it or not.
So sad.
Hi, this is Laura Nightwriter. I have a question. I am in the process of trying to e-file my oral argument card.
There will be a panel of 3 judges. We will not know that panel until the morning of the argument. So part of what we are doing is making sure that she understands the viewpoints of all 11 of the judges on the Seventh Circuit, that she's read opinions
That's a lot
by
of
all
work
of
you
those
have to do.
judges, on the areas that we are covering.
I absolutely cannot watch Brendan's
that she can
interrogation interviews
adapt
anymore. None of them.
her
They break
argument
my
if
heart
need
and
be,
elicits
depending on
rage
who
that
the
no one
panel is.
advocated for him. I feel you, Kristen. It's infuriating. It's end of 5. And mine goes right into it, so episode 6 is starting right now.
Usually at about 6 o'clock I get up. But it was raining, I was listening to the rain on the house. It must have rained all night. I can't lie in bed. And think,
Dog's name is Bandit.
I do that at night yet. I think that's what Barbara does too.
I bought that.
I don't know, I think she's doing good too. But it takes time, everything takes time. Just hang on. That's all you have to do, hang on.
That's awful hair Steven had there. I did some poking around the family support group last night. Some of the comments there are something else. Yeah.
When there's some type of explosion
Yeah, Natasha.
and they're stuck underground.
I don't understand. Well,
And
but
so
see, that's the
you
thing you
can
need to remember. It's the
communicate
family
with them.
support page.
But you
It's not
know
a page
that
to
they're
support Stephen or Brendan,
eventually
even though
gonna
that's
run
what
out
they'll
of
say.
air.
It's a page to support the family. So that's why they
And
don't
so
allow
you're
you to
in
talk
that,
about that
you know,
Bobby and
with
Scott are
trying
the
to
ones that should be
reassure
in
'em,
prison.
trying to
They,
give 'em
they
hope.
defend them.
When you leave someone like that, you always feel like you're sending them back, like underground. And so there's that really terrible feeling that you might not make it in time, or your efforts to rescue them might not work.
I know it's really sad when I visit Melissa or Kent. And so once they're in this visiting room, the tables have a set spot at each table where the inmate has to sit. Only the inmate can sit at that spot. And then once they're there, they can't get up unless they're going to go to the bathroom type thing. So like they can't go to the vending machines to pick out what they want. They just have to tell you for you to go get it. And then when you leave, they have to stay seated there. So it's like so like with Melissa the last time there, we're like waving to her from the door as we're walking out, as she's still sitting there. It's weird. Kristen says she went to the Stephen Avery is guilty page today, or innocent or guilty, whatever. Morbid curiosity. This particular page you don't have to join. Oh dear, it was an awful 3 minutes of my life that I spent on that page. Yeah, I don't get how anybody can just look at all of this and go guilty.
Have you got the tube for the blood?
I do. I'm used to dividing evidence, so I have the tube to take the blood.
Great.
I've brought another syringe and a set of needles. And
Great.
of course, it just goes into a container that's essentially unbreakable.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, girly, I'm at a corner bar, but I can read the post but not hear anything. Oh, sorry. Cherry says, so when you visit, is inmate sitting there waiting for visitor to come indoor? No. At least every time I've gone, I get there.
It's kind of a
Don't
shot
know.
in the dark.
Because Melissa was there first the last time, so it just all
We don't
depends.
know exactly what the condition is.
So I've been there before when I'm told this is the table you go to, you're assigned this table, and then you just go there and wait for the inmate to come. Or the last time I went and visited Melissa, she was already seated at the table.
The key.
But you've checked in at a whole other building, you know, and that's where you have to fill stuff out. Like I have to put every time what kind of car I have and what's the license plate. They're looking to see if I have any jewelry on. They want to see if I have a belt on, what color is my belt, what kind of shoes I have on, what color are my shoes. And then I have to be patted down. And so while all that's happening, they've called to the other thing to say that that person has a visit. How long are you allowed to stay at a visit? When I went to Ken's, they weren't telling me I had to leave at all. So I was there for like 4 hours. Melissa, I'm not sure how long you can visit. I always go with her folks. And Paul, he's got a lot of medical conditions, and so Paul can't last that long. So we get there at 9 when it opens, and then we leave at noon.
Yeah. So A7 was a 2 mil blood microfuge tube, and inside the microfuge tube were a few.
Melissa is a very sweet girl, Christy.
Or maybe 1.5 millimeter size.
Julie says, I've always wondered how Bobby could have gotten the liquid blood into a container. Is he smart enough to have something in hand to do that? Well, I'm just going to go, he likes to slaughter deer, so he's around blood all the time. And they had internet, even though Barb tries to deny it. Is Melissa in the same level prison as Stephen and Brendan?
Now we know.
Melissa says her prison is called a cupcake prison, which is what Kent refers to his prison as well. And the prison Melissa's in is when you're good. You know, that you get to be in this prison that, it's not as bad. Kent had been in a worse prison that had really bad gangs in it, where actually while Kent was sleeping, a guy came and beat the crap out of him. So he's lost a lot of his sight in one eye due to that beating. And so he was able to transfer to another prison after that. Look at how clean that key is.
Yeah, I see something. There you go. There's an orange developed along the edges. You can't see it very well in this picture. What do you think? You just show up these white spots. Yeah. It needs to be filtered. I don't know, is it?
Hey, maybe this is bleach.
Oh, now you start to see the orange. Now you see the orange. We'll do the other side of the same condition. Orange or green? It looks green here. It's orange though.
I'm assuming Stephen and Brendan are in harder prisons since it's rumored Chris Watts got sent to one of their prisons.
The evidence the state presents.
Yeah, so
the key isn't
Chris
found
Watts is at Stephen's prison, right? And the prison that Brendan's in is the one that Jeffrey Dahmer was at.
But overriding that is the DNA.
Oh my God, it's 69 degrees where you are, Tino. I'm jealous.
When I received the key, it was in a sealed brown paper bag. I opened it up. I had gloves on, and I held the metal part of the key in one hand, and I swabbed the
I was
black,
surprised though. My last visit with Melissa, she didn't even pat me down. She brought me in the room and she looked at my sweat jacket, but didn't pat me down. But she did pat down Cheryl, Melissa's mom.
So I was primarily interested to see if I could recover DNA that had been left behind by possibly touching.
And did you compare the profile
South
that
Florida,
you developed
nice.
from your swabbing of this key?
Did anyone ever
with the
find out
DNA
what happened
profile that you
to
developed
Brendan's
from the buccal
car,
swab of Stephen Avery?
Bobby's
Yes, I
car,
did.
Stephen's trailer?
The same 15 markers.
What are you asking, Maureen?
These are the types at each one of these markers, and you
Yeah,
can see
Amy Jo,
at
that's
every
what I
type,
heard,
the
is that
profile
Chris
from the
Watts
evidence
was at
sample is
Waupun.
consistent with the profile from Stephen Avery.
Now, when you
Oh,
tested
Scott's
this
trailer?
swab
Scott's
from the
trailer
key, you use the entire swab, do you?
Yes.
Burned up, right?
Normally, you'll try and just cut a swab
Do you
in
know
half,
highest level
use
of
half,
education
say
for,
half.
I believe,
Well, I felt
I
that,
don't know if Bobby graduated high
being
school or Scott, I don't
what we
know.
refer to as a touched item.
But Bobby
and-
does not
and there
have the low
being no
IQ
visible,
that Brendan has.
Indication of a biological fluid like blood.
And Scott
that-
seems to have it too.
Yes, I would probably have a low amount to start with.
Yeah, they let me in with a
If you
hoodie.
can look at your notes, maybe refresh your recollection. If you can give me
18
some
inches of
estimate
snow.
from
No
your
snow
records
here.
about just what
It
the
was
level
actually like almost
of
40.
DNA you found on that key was.
But it's really
My
windy now
quantitation
and
is
getting cold.
0.17 for 1 microliter.
Oh, a
The thing
Dom.
that's
Well, then
suspicious
if Watts
about
is at
the
Dahmer's
DNA
prison, then
is the
he's with
quantity
Brendan.
of it, because she said it was touch DNA, and Dr. Reich felt, just looking at it, that there was too much DNA on the key to have just been the result of handling. But the defense had no DNA expert rebuttal to
But
that.
see, I hate
testimony.
this again because Sherry
On
Culhane
cross,
should not even be
it's
on this
very
case,
difficult to make
and she's
those
proven
points because
herself
the state's witness isn't
to
gonna
screw
concede
stuff
anything,
up. So
and
therefore,
you
we
don't
shouldn't
have
be
the
listening to
scientific
anything that Culhane
expertise
has
to
to
really
say.
refute it. So once again, the jury's sitting there
I
without
just think
any
law
way,
enforcement figured out
any
who did it
framework, any
immediately and told them
context
what to do to
understand
frame Stephen.
What does it mean? What does it mean? There's
Well, they
no
didn't figure
mixture.
out
What
who
does
did
it
it.
mean that the
They
person
just
that owned
wanted
the
it to be
keys'
Stephen.
DNA isn't on it.
There are some studies that talk about how the last person who touches an item
Don't all
may
these people
leave
too just seem
the
smug?
major portion of DNA that's left on there, right?
Yes.
But most often when that happens, there's still a mixture and there's a minor contributor as well, right?
No, I would disagree with that.
Okay.
In some cases, yes. If you have someone who is a good shedder and sheds a
I don't
lot
know
of
if
DNA,
defense could object to her as a witness.
when they touch something, a lot of the studies show that the last person
Chris
is going
Watts
to
at
be
Dodge Correctional
the
pending
DNA
another
that you pick
transfer.
up. If you don't shed a lot of DNA, then you may not
Is he
find
on
any
his
at all.
way to one of theirs?
For a number
Jack's, a
of years,
recap, how long does state
long time
or
ago in
COA
forensics,
have to
there
respond to
was
Zellner's
a
motion?
hypothesis
Oh,
that
God,
there
see,
were
this is something
individuals
number
who were-
related. I
who
really,
were called
I'm
secretors.
not good at this
Individuals
stuff.
who were non-secretors.
But everything I'm always
And
told
it turns
is,
out
30,
that
60
that
days,
particular
30, 60
designation
days.
has no basis in science. It was junk, and we can ignore it. But that idea has promulgated because that's what people wrote and that's what people thought for many years. And so I think some of that incorrect thinking is still out there in terms of shedder versus non-shedder and who would be first and did they leave more behind. And the answer is nothing to it. A identical vehicle was obtained and an identical key was obtained to try and reproduce what the state came up with in terms of the amount of the DNA that was recovered.
How is that possible that her, Teresa's DNA isn't on her own key, but Stephen's is?
Mr. Avery hold
Maz, yeah, we'll
that
do a
was
live
timed
the
for
day.
12 minutes.
As soon as we have
so
the
we
brief,
can measure how much
I'll go
DNA
live and read it.
we got from the same kind of key held
Sherry
for what
says,
we
so
imagine
could
is the same
be
amount
more
of time
delays. Yeah.
by the same person.
I don't know if with
The
new people
state
coming
got
into office wouldn't delay it. Just
0.17
I have no idea if
nanograms
people can
per
ask
microliter.
for
The
extensions.
amount of DNA
I can,
that
it
we
just seems like
recovered
everybody's always
from the
filing
exemplar
extensions.
key is a tenth or so of the amount of DNA that the Wisconsin lab obtained.
Oh, thank you, Christy.
From theirs.
After she files, the state has
Not
40
half,
days to
not
respond.
80%,
Then
but a
KZ
tenth.
has 20 days to respond to the
Why
state.
did we
Then the
recover
COA takes
so
it.
much less?
Both state
Maybe
and
we
KZ
weren't as
can
efficient?
also file
Or
extensions. Do
maybe
not expect to
the
see anything from
key
COA
had some
until
other
at
history
least,
than simply
and it
being
just,
held by Mr. Avery.
where is it? Late summer, early
Mr.
fall.
Buting,
Oh
I
my
believe it was,
God.
had the imagination, let's call it,
I hate our system.
to suggest to you that maybe officers were taking a
Kratz.
toothbrush.
Kratz.
And were kind
I didn't mean to say
of
Kratz.
rubbing Mr.
Kristen,
Avery's
spare key.
toothbrush
Look
on
how
the key,
clean
and
it
that's
is.
how the
And not used
DNA
mark
got,
on it.
got
And
on
where
the
are her
key.
house keys, etc.
Common sense should
Well,
tell
and that's
you
something if
that
you go
these
to
kind of motions,
StephenAveryCase.org
what are called furtive
and read
motions,
Thomas
or,
Pierce's
for,
testimony,
lay people,
he
for
will talk
people like
about
you,
how she was
it's called
very paranoid of losing her
suspicious
keys.
looking things,
Same thing with her
is
friend
something
that
you
she
should,
had gone on a
probably
trip with in
discard,
August.
because if they take Mr.
She's
Avery's
very
toothbrush
worried
and
about
start
losing her
rubbing it on the
keys.
key,
So you
know,
wouldn't
and
have
kinda hold it
multiple
behind
key
your back,
rings. All your keys
that
would be on
becomes
one ring.
almost
You're not going to
cartoonish.
want to
That
keep track of
becomes,
multiple key
something
rings.
that is not at all plausible.
Could you improve the item of evidence?
Yeah,
by
Christy, I
rubbing it
also,
on a mouth swab,
well,
on a
everybody's
buccal
excited to
swab,
see what she files
or with a
because
toothbrush?
every time she files, there
And the
has to be
answer
something
is
new in
those
it.
would be
So there'll be
great
something else we
sources of
haven't heard
DNA.
yet.
You would get lots of DNA transferred simply and rapidly by rubbing an item of evidence against either one of those.
A recurring theme in the case, and something that's so suspicious and such a red flag, is that there are never mixtures on any of these items. So once again, we can't duplicate what the state claimed happened, and we should have been able to duplicate that easily over and over and over again. So how could we have all of these scientific aberrations in one case?
Yeah, I hope she's sitting on something good. Alright, so February 14th, the 7th Circuit of Appeals in Chicago, I attended this. And this is the one that then Carla and her minions attacked me for what I was wearing. Which, they attacked me for my coat. And my coat was a sweat jacket that Brendan designed. And so it's so funny that that's what they wanted to pick on me for. Mind you, they weren't there. So Barb didn't attend, Carla didn't attend. None of them were there. I was there in attendance in support of Brendan. But they're going to make fun of me because I had on a sweat jacket. That's why every time you see Carla here, when she goes to court, she's in a fucking, in a hoodie. And I'm going to call it out every time. I had nice clothes on. That was my coat that I didn't wear in the courtroom.
First order of business is to find out who our panel is.
Carla is Stephen's niece, who named herself the family spokesperson. This is the one that I was in line, like 3 people behind Kratz and his pig of a wife. The Hallback family was not in line with the rest of us. They were in a private room that nobody saw them, and then they were, came into the courtroom.
to you, Rachel. Yes, we are here outside the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago, where the U.S. Court of Appeals will hear the case of Brendan Dassey. The big question is, will Dassey's
So see where all those cameras was right there? The the press just sets up their cameras down there and then a bank of microphones.
Good morning, everyone.
And so Judge Rovner, I'm related to
May
her.
it please the court. Brendan Dassey
Anyway,
chose to confess, to release those terrible images.
Anybody
of
could
Teresa
go up to
Halbach
those microphones
that
and
were
talk. They
haunting
weren't
him.
asking people
The
to. And
investigators
of course,
encouraged
Kratz
him to get it
volunteered
out,
to go
but
talk
did
to
not
them
apply
when
any
none of this
improper
is
pressure.
any of his
Mr.
business.
Bird, help me with this. If a police officer says to someone who is being interrogated, let's get it all out today and this will be all over, what would the average person think this means? Would that person think, I can go home, it's done? Now imagine
Oh yeah, that
it
is her
not an average
her
person,
dead husband's
but
brother.
a
That's true.
16-year-old with a very, very low IQ who is extremely
Knock it off.
suggestible.
I think neither an average person nor Dassey would interpret that statement as meaning that he could go home.
What if there were 20 such statements, 30 such statements?
Nothing the investigators said actually promised a specific benefit in exchange for cooperation.
Well, how did the investigators not act coercively when they clearly showed frustration when he resisted or disagreed with key details?
The
and then
women
offered
judges I
praise,
thought
such
were
as,
great.
Now we
The one
believe
man.
you.
I mean, I think if you watch the video, they showed very little frustration or praise.
And I did look at the tape, and there were times to me that they seemed to be frustrated
Sweaty
with his
sweat
answers
cats,
and
man.
his resistance.
Their main concern was the truth. The main message that they sent to Dassey was, be honest, tell the truth, don't make anything up.
It seems
Be honest,
to me
I
that it
freaking
only
hate that.
takes one incident of planting information to taint a confession. You know, who shot her in the head? You think that's all right?
Obviously, it's preferable for the suspect to come
Oh,
up with it on
and
their own,
most
but
of
it's
the
not always
people who
possible.
were in
And it
the
makes a
courtroom
lot
for
of
this,
sense why Dassey
they
couldn't
were
think
all
about
law
that fact at that
students.
moment. The
You
conversation
know,
that
so
they
it
were
was
having
full, and there was
about
even
what
an
happened in the
overflow
bedroom.
room,
The
but
investigators
it was
didn't
mostly
find out
law
until later
students.
that she was shot in the garage. So when they started asking about the head, Dassey couldn't think of the shooting because his mind was on the bedroom where all of the other things happened.
And anybody
So-
can attend a
So I
court
wanna ask
hearing,
you, do you
by the way.
agree that age is
It's
a
first come,
relevant
first
factor in
served.
determining
So
whether
you got to
a
get in that
confession is
line
voluntary?
and hope you
I
get
do,
in
but
And
first
the
seat.
Supreme Court said that juvenile confessions must be evaluated with special care. So I want to know exactly where the Wisconsin Appellate Court decision considers Dassey's age and where it was given special care.
Dassey's age is listed in the opinion.
Yeah, it's listed, but in special care is more than just listing, don't you think?
It said it was basing its opinion on the trial court's decision, and the trial court's decision.
That's what was the
spent a lot
body
of time
language
on
of
it.
judges
So
during
I
this,
think on
if you
habeas
remember.
especially,
Well,
you
I
can't
took
assume
notes
that
of
the
everything
Wisconsin Court
too,
of Appeals did
and
not
I
consider
probably have an article written on it.
During the videotaped confession, Mr. Dassey comes out with a lot
Their
of
body
details
language
that he
didn't tell
supplies.
anything,
The opposing side
I don't think. But
has
listening to them,
explained
you could tell that the
as
women
details that have
were
been
for
publicized.
I think there's a few minor points. So there's a few
Brendan,
facts that
and the
we
one
know
man was not.
had been released by the police officers, but the vast majority of them did not.
But was there
updates?
physical evidence of a rape or of a wound to the throat?
No, because the body was totally destroyed.
So those come only from Dassey's confession.
That's right. Yes, but
And
there
would
were
not have been publicized ahead of time.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Now, obviously, there were vague promises of leniency.
Right. I think there weren't even implied promises of leniency. Even if there were specific warnings that contradicted any implications. But let me just reiterate, we're on habeas review, right? So you're going to have factors that cut in different directions. In
Hello,
every
Katie
case.
in
And
Minnesota.
where that's true, reasonable minds can certainly differ. Reasonable minds can definitely conclude that Dassey's confession was voluntary here. He was Mirandized, even though he didn't have to be. He was interviewed for only 3 hours in the middle of the day. He was offered food and breaks.
This
Both
is the
his mother
article
and he
I
consented
wrote
to the interview. He signed a Miranda waiver. He resisted the officer's
of this
There's no evidence that his will was
thing.
overborne.
Is that
But I
clickable
think
or
there's
no?
evidence to the contrary.
Doesn't look
And
clickable in
all
here.
of the precedent
All right, let me go
supports
into
the state
gossip
here. It
and
doesn't
just make a
support
whole
Dassey.
separate thing of it.
Okay, Ms. Ryder,
16-year-old mentally limited Brendan Dassey confessed in reliance on a false promise of leniency. That promise was, quote, "You're scared
So
that
I
you might
made
get arrested,
a
but,
post
quote,
in Gossip
I'm thinking you're all
of
right. Okay, you don't have to worry
when
about
I
things."
wrote
They told him this was true, even
about
if he
going
gave,
going
quote,
to this.
statements against your own interest that make you look more involved.
I want to ask you, were the investigators aware of his intellectual or emotional limitations, and if not, was that necessary?
I don't know whether they knew his precise IQ score, but it's not important here whether they knew. The question of voluntariness is not a referendum on the state of mind of the officers. The question is what message was sent to Brendan Dassey, and did it overbear his will?
Look, I've watched the whole thing. I don't see a will being overborne.
How do you not see Brendan being run over?
To cutting Miss Hallbach's throat after raping her.
I'm not sure I understand your
It's
question.
not new. It's not news sources, is it?
No, Your Honor.
So it's either Dassey's memory or his imagination.
It's not in the media. You're correct. It's either his memory or his imagination, and it's that sequence in which the
Why does it have to be his
trying to get
memory
him to
or
say-
his imagination?
It's
He was
clear
led
he's been
to
very
say these
resistant
things,
up to that point.
and he had
He's
been
telling
questioned
a contradictory
multiple different
story that doesn't
times.
make any
So
sense.
maybe
And
not
they're
this
calling
time did they say this part,
comes out
but they said
very
it that
slowly
time.
and painfully, but
And
he volunteers it.
Your Honor, I would respectfully disagree.
Brendan didn't say
Every
any of
step
that stuff of his
that-
own free will.
Of that confession, every primary plot point is a result of suggestion. Now, it's true that after the interrogators introduce a plot point, they allow Brendan to embellish.
Like,
I thought Laura did a better
went
job
inside.
this one,
You went
the
inside
February
house?
14th
Yes.
day.
and then you're holding them
Then when it was
responsible for all the
on bunk,
details that come
is that how
after
you say it? I say that
I'm
every
not holding them
time.
responsible,
I
Your
did
Honor, but
not
I'm
think
pointing
Laura
out
did
that what happened was
well
they
there
used
at all.
false promises of leniency, combined with fact feeding at every crucial step of the
No, so
story.
this one was just the
I
three.
guess I'm
On
just
bunk
having
is
trouble
when
with
it's
that in
all
the
of
early
them.
stages of the interview.
Absolutely. I think you went over to Stephen Avery's house at Separate Appendix 54. You went back in that room, Separate Appendix 61. Does he ask you to rape Hallbach, Separate Appendix at 60? You were there when she died, Separate Appendix 67. After they give him each step, they allow him to try to tell a story on his own. And what does he do in those moments? He provides information that is provably untrue.
Is there any?
Yeah, I know, they go
physical
over that
evidence
kiss the
at
girl
all
stuff. I've never
that
read
ties
the book.
Dassey to the murder?
No, Your Honor, there's
I've
nothing
only
that
seen
did
the
not
movie.
come from the fact feeding that occurred during this interrogation. I expect you'll hear the state suggest that he led them to a bullet in the garage. That's not the case. Brendan has the shooting at first happening outside by the bonfire pit. And the officers say to him, because they know they found 10 shell casings
I'm
in
French
that
and
garage
normally
already.
you wouldn't
They say to him,
pronounce
"No,
the
Brendan,
K,
we know
which is a
something's
C
happened in
at
that
the
garage.
end.
We need to get the honesty
En
about the
bond.
garage." That's when he moves the murder into the garage. Then they research the garage and
Okay. Thanks,
discover
Sarah.
this bullet. That corroborates not Brendan Dassey's account, but the interrogator's account.
Thank you. Mr. Burke, would you please give Mr. Burke 3 more minutes?
The details that Dassey provided
I
that are
thought this
most
guy did a
telling
sucky job.
are his memories of Teresa. He remembers her screaming, "Help me," and seeing her naked and chained up to the bed. He remembers her crying and pleading.
But
with
none
him
of
to
this
stop
is in
while he raped her.
Stevens.
He remembers her
So
breathing
how can
after he
any of
stabbed
this
her in
stuff
the
that
stomach,
Brendan is
and
saying,
she's still struggling
whether
to
or
breathe
not
after
he was
cut her
coerced to
throat.
say it or
He
not,
remembers that her belly wasn't
can be
moving
used
as
because
he
you
carried her out
didn't.
to
You
the
have
garage.
somebody else in
He
prison
remembers
where
the
none of
awful
this
smell
happened.
as her body burned.
I'm sorry.
None of those
I'm
memories
screaming.
were planted. They were raw and real. Dassey wanted to get them out, and he did so voluntarily. I would ask this court to reverse the district court's unprecedented order.
Yeah, I personally couldn't see Brendan reading that book
Sanctuary of
and
sorts.
comprehending it.
A place where generally the best lawyers practice, the arguments
I could
that
see
are
him
made
seeing the movie,
are
but
elevated.
not reading that book.
It's a very dignified
This is the
place.
first hearing. This is the
And I think
just the
when
Seventh Circuit of
arguments
Appeals
were
when it's the
happening
3.
in court, it was at a very high level and it respected the process. And then we came downstairs and there was all this commotion. And I went over and walked over to see what was happening.
Yeah,
And
I was
Ken
here for
Kratz
this
was
too.
holding a press conference.
My name is Ken Kratz. I'm the former special prosecutor in the Brendan Dassey case. I am hopeful on behalf of the state that this decision
Bobby's book
will affirm what it is that the state courts of Wisconsin.
It's so weird too, since I'm local. So like that guy standing over there is a long-time newsman here. You know, so I know all these news people because I've seen him on the news here.
If he wants to hold a press conference, we all know about his press conferences. If he wants to do that, do it on his turf. Don't come into the federal district court and the federal appellate court in Chicago and soil the process.
You know, Sweaty Sweat just wanted attention, and he needed his child's bride to be impressed.
Kratz, K-R-A-T-Z.
And tell us again your title.
I'm former Calumet County DA.
Yeah, what's your title? I'm just a big sweaty piece of shit and do nothing. I'm a rapist, sex offender.
Yeah, I do. We're not going to talk about that today, though. Today, I think, is and has to be focused on this really, really important case. We'll have a lot of time to talk about all those kind of things later.
If the conviction is
Natasha, I know it's hard to keep your mouth shut.
Without a confession, do they have much of a case against Brendan Dassey?
I actually,
this thing goes back to trial. Let's not
when I
kid ourselves.
For the next one, and I went with Paul Kaluzinski for the So I get in the elevator, so Paul and I get in the elevator, and two of Carla's minions get in the elevator with us. And so the one chick who, and that's the chick that filed a report against me with my attorney general's office and all this stuff. And so she says to me,
"Why are you?
I pray for you." That's her first words to me when we're in the elevator, and I told her to go fuck herself. And then she didn't say anything after that.
I just have a seat, Brendan.
This was seen by many as a false confession. Do you see it as a false confession or a real confession?
I feel it was a real confession.
Fassbender resists charges that he and his partner inappropriately planted ideas in Dassey's head, like in that exchange about the hood latch.
What did he do under the hood if that's what he did?
What did Brendan say?
What did he do under the hood if that's what he did? See, again, you're leading the witness.
Agreed.
Yes.
So you brought it up first.
Yeah, I believe so.
And that's one of the areas that you came under fire for.
Yes.
Is that you were planting things in his mind.
Yes, that's what they said.
No.
And there were instances that we did ask him specifically about things, yes.
What about his IQ? Because when you watch him, you can tell that he has a lower IQ.
I don't assess IQs. I mean, I'm not...
But could you tell?
She didn't ask you to assess IQ because she stated as fact. Everybody can tell he's got a lower IQ. So you don't need to have to assess IQ. You can tell talking to Brendan he's got a low IQ.
He knew right from wrong.
We speak with former prosecutor Ken Kratz, who's written a new book which reveals his provocative theory that Stephen Avery made.
It's not a provocative theory. It's his
Stephen
personal
Avery started planning this event on the very first day he went to prison.
Dream. Go lay down.
Kratz tells Dateline he believes Stephen Avery had set his sights on Teresa Halbach in the weeks leading up to her murder.
As we move closer towards October 31st, we see Stephen's behavior changing.
So want to punch him in the mouth. Had a pair of new silver handcuffs and leg irons.
He starts making calls directly
I thought they were fuzzy and
to
pink.
Teresa Halbach rather than going through Auto Trader.
Why would Stephen
He
Avery
went
do
through
this
Auto
when he
Trader.
was on the verge of getting this big windfall, potentially millions of dollars?
That's a great question. I don't know. We know that his...
You don't know much of anything, do you?
We know that he has...
Do we know that?
Well,
She was good.
Let's say I allege that, okay? I believe that deep down.
Deep down. Like, we care what you believe.
Picture of Stephen. You bring previous allegations of sexual assault and rape, none of which were ever prosecuted. This seems to have really been a personal case for you, at least became a personal case for you. Looking back, do you think you could have approached this from a more professional standpoint as opposed to not characterizing Stephen in certain ways that you have?
These are all observations that I made well after
Barb
the fact,
had
after
those
he was
same
convicted.
exact handcuffs.
Oh, I thought that he was a bad guy in the sense of he certainly had violence against women, histories. He had injured just about everybody that he was ever in a relationship.
I don't know if the
with. And so
statute of limitations would be up
at
now.
the time,
You know, they're
knowing that
clearly
he was
not going to
violent,
do
that doesn't
anything
make
to
him a murderer,
Bobby.
of course, but it isn't too far of a characterization or determination of what I think he is now, which
And something to remember is they wanted to find porn because they were using this sexual deviant thing.
Really
there was no
unprecedented
porn in Stephen's house.
that
The only
Mr.
thing they
Kratz in
found
2017
was a picture that
is still
Jody had taken,
some type of
and
active
then there was a
character
video that
assassination
Stephen and Jody did together.
tour.
That's all they have
He's
that would be
talking
porn
about
related.
crimes that he wishes Stephen Avery had been charged and convicted of,
So,
but he wasn't.
Quite the sexual
And I
deviant.
think it is going to come back to haunt him because I think he's crossed over from what would just be regarded. It was certainly gone from being just an incredibly bad
Yeah, I know, it is
taste
weird, Christy.
to, you know, doing things that are unethical under the canon of ethics, to now really interfering in Mr. Avery's efforts to have a court re-examine constitutional violations. So he's like a moth to the flame, and he just cannot stay away from the case. And the more
I
he
hope
talks,
this moth
the more
gets burned.
ammunition he's
Or
giving
can he
us.
get burned because he's all sweaty,
Because
sweat.
he's
So can he
made
catch on
so
fire?
many statements that are just false.
Are you afraid of Kathleen Zellner?
No, I'm not involved in the case anymore. I shouldn't.
You're
be
not
afraid
involved in
of,
the case anymore, huh?
Anything. My involvement
She
concluded.
could.
Go ahead.
She could unravel your work if what she's saying has some weight to it. You don't think she has a chance?
I don't.
When you look at a prosecutor's duty of silence and how prosecutors are supposed to act with regard to past convictions, they have to be very careful. So if they are talking openly about a case, what is their purpose? Here we have someone talking about a past conviction who isn't a prosecutor anymore and is writing a book. And that does not seem to be a necessary and legitimate interest that could cause one to go out and talk about a past conviction.
Right.
And there does seem to be some precedent for if the violations of the canons of ethics or of what a prosecutor is supposed to do. If they're so egregious, then we possibly could bring that as a claim on its own.
I mean, everything's covered.
Looking back, were there
Brady,
certain things
ethic
you would have done
violation,
differently
new evidence,
in this case,
everything's
knowing now what
Yeah,
you do?
yeah, certainly. The one big thing I would have done is not give a press conference on the 2nd of March after Brendan made his statement and after he was charged. I provided that information that was in the criminal complaint orally. I could have and should have just released the complaint, let all the reporters repeat the facts. I didn't have to do that, and obviously, if I had to do it all
It
over
wasn't
again,
facts.
I was trying to keep more information out of the public. It sounds a little bit
Sure he
unusual,
was.
but there were so many horrific facts in this case that I thought by providing the soundbite myself, by providing the soundbite, I could lessen the impact on the family and on the community. I was resoundingly criticized for it. I see why. But I made that decision.
I don't know,
It was a
Maureen. I
conscious
don't know
decision
anything
that
about
I
the
made
new
to do that
governor.
again. I would have done it.
And he's fighting other stuff right now that they're trying to take away all his power before he even starts.
Six months ago, after the Lynn thing had heated up, Stephen was very upset about just about everything. He was angry, he was nervous, he was overwhelmed, and this is when Stephen decided to take me off the visiting list. He was still calling me. We just weren't, we didn't fight anymore. But I ended up crying my eyes out when I hung up. We have been good now for months. We're past all that mess that went on last summer and into